Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show, we've got James Quick. What's up, James? How you doing?
What's going on, man? It's good to see you and hang out. I don't know if you know this, but I've secretly really wanted to be on this for a very long time.
Well, that's very. I mean, I'm flattered. I'm always happy to hang out with people. I'm happy to have you on here. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. And so we are. Let's see. We got a lot on the plate today, so we can talk about that. But why don't we start by talking about you? Do you want to give us a little bit of background on yourself?
Yeah. I don't even know. I don't know where people start. I have a computer science degree. Started as a technical evangelist at Microsoft. Worked as a software developer at FedEx. Joined Auth0 at the beginning of COVID and did developer advocacy there up until a week and a half ago. Not a couple days ago, but the week before Monday was my last day at Auth0. And we'd already had this scheduled, so I figured it would be good to go ahead and continue with the Svelte kit, actually, in Auth0 content. But I just joined PlanetScale literally, is today Tuesday or Wednesday? I don't even know. Literally yesterday was
Today
Monday?
is Tuesday, yeah.
Tuesday, yeah. So
It is
literally
one of those
yesterday
weeks.
joined. Yeah, yeah, it totally is. Anyway, I'll be kind of ramping up there and creating more content and streaming and stuff. I'll actually stream right after this on the brand new PlanetScale Twitch channel. So hopefully
Yeah.
be able to take a little bit of your audience over there.
Yeah, you're gonna marathon it a little bit. So everybody stay tuned. We'll go over and raid PlanetScale today. So PlanetScale is exciting. We're not going to talk about PlanetScale today. But for folks who want to learn about it, you can go watch the next stream. In this stream, we're going to talk about Svelte, specifically Sveltekit, and Auth0. So let's start by talking a little bit about Auth0. So what is it? What problem does it solve?
Yeah, it's kind of like we chatted a little bit about Cloudinary beforehand. There's like Stripe, and there's all these different other services that do something for you. Like they really have the expertise in that given area, and that makes it easier for you, the developer, to implement that thing in the app that you're building. In this case, Auth0 is around authentication and authorization. So like I don't know that it was ever like a formal tagline, but basically I believe in it. It's like the easiest way to add authentication to your applications. So you'll see, like, people will see this, but you register an application. There's an SDK that we'll use. In this case, it's the vanilla JavaScript one, or actually it's a SPA.js one. But we'll use that on the front end. You configure it with a couple of properties, and then it handles all the login and stuff. In the dashboard in Auth0, you can configure like social providers, Twitter, Facebook, Google, Discord, Twitch, I think is probably one of them too. All that sort of stuff. You can manage your users. You can do multi-factor authentication, like all the auth things that you might want to do. Really are just kind of there for you to add to your apps. And as a developer, it doesn't get much easier.
Yeah, I mean, I think authentication is one of those things that spooks people easily. I know that it's really intimidating if you've never done it before to be staring down like, okay, I got to figure out how am I going to let somebody like create an account and log in, and then I got to be able to handle password resets, and I got to do all this other security stuff. And if you've never built these types of systems before, it gets really intimidating. I've tried to build like hashed password tables and password recovery and stuff like that, and I managed to pull it off, but I don't think it was good. And so it's nice to it is definitely nice to have a way to just kind of have that stuff handled for you. The drop-in solutions are always really nice, especially with stuff like Auth, where it's effectively always the same thing, right? Like you're not reinventing wheels. Most businesses don't have special use cases in terms of what they're going to do with Auth. So yeah, Auth0, I've used it on a couple projects. It's nice, it's handy. I'm excited to work with it again because I haven't looked at it in a while. And then the other thing we're going to do is we're going to be working a little bit with Sveltekit. And I've done a bit with Sveltekit. I did a stream a while back where I had a guest had something come up, so I just kind of spent the time experimenting with Sveltekit and seeing how it felt. I really liked it. It's a powerful, it's a powerful bit of technology, and it feels good to use. So what has you excited about it? Like why is Sveltekit something that you're pumped about?
Yeah. It's kind of interesting. I was like a little bit of an early adopter, I guess, just in terms of content. So I did like a Sveltekit crash course several months ago on YouTube. That was like people seemed to really enjoy that, and that was literally just like an opportunity for me to try it out. Like it was
Mm.
literally I told people publicly I'm going to do this crash course before I'd ever done basically anything with Svelte and Sveltekit at all, and so it was just like I have to learn this stuff now to be able to create this content. And I did, and it's like honestly, it's if people have heard of Sveltekit and the benefits, like it's exactly what people say. It's as close to vanilla JavaScript as you'd expect. It's simpler. Like you think about forms in React, for example, you have to do a use state and then update the thing as the thing changes. That sort of stuff is just kind of there with Svelte. And I actually just started looking into Vue, and there's a lot of similarities in terms of simplicity with Vue and Svelte, which is pretty cool. But yeah, it feels more natural. It feels more vanilla-y. Stores are kind of a built-in thing, which I feel like React and like the context API and stuff is really nice, but it's also like more difficult setting up than it should. Like I have to look it up every time I want to configure a provider in a context. And Svelte is just like you create a store, you import this thing, and then you determine you've got a piece of datable that's right or data that's writable.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it. And so I like that kind of stuff I think is really, really neat.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing that you're touching on here is the sort of level of opinions that your framework has, and I think that something that I've heard Rich Harris say, who's the creator of Svelte, is that your framework should have an opinion on things that you do every single day. Yep. So if you're writing a Svelte app, you're going to need stores, you're going to need animation, you're going to need these things that you do in virtually every web app needs a little bit of this stuff, and I think that React has sort of taken the other approach where React is more of, we're going to give you primitives and we're not going to be prescriptive about the way that you solve problems. And so I think that it's sort of a gradient, right? Like what type of control, what fine grain of control are you looking for? And I think that what we're finding is that a lot of people really do like they like opinionated frameworks. I mean, this was one of the strengths of Angular. I think that's why a lot of people used it back in the day, is that when you would put Angular on a project, it had a lot of opinions. You did things in the Angular way, and it was really predictable. If you look at an Angular code base from any company, they're really, really similar because of how strong the opinions are. I mean, that's also its downfall. That's why I think people get grumpy about Angular as well, is because you have to do so much boilerplate to make Angular do what you want. And so I think, Svelte is in an interesting spot where it doesn't feel like a ton of boilerplate, but it has that similar level of opinions about how you do common things. But yeah, so, okay. So, let's see, we got some
Sweet.
Coder Destin. Thank you for the sub. I saw Ben subbed earlier. Thank you, Ben, for the sub. I think you're over a year now, which is wild. Thank you so much for sticking with me for this long. Nice. And also I saw somebody calling out my new backdrop. Look at it. Look how nice it is. Look, I'm just going to get out of the way. I'm so happy about it. Oh boy, I just kicked everything. Oh boy.
I've got some
pretend that's not happening. Okay.
I've got some updating to do on I just moved my desk around, and so you see it's kind of bare back there, but I've got like similar idea of like a couple of shelves. I actually want to have more like developer hats. Like I've got a few from different brands, and I want to have those on display similar to yours, and like a Harry Potter wand or something cool. So anyway, so keep an eye out for that over the next couple of weeks. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah, I see you joking about the plants in there. Yeah, no, I definitely have already had to chase Marissa out of here. She came in with a plant, and I was like, no, it'll die. There's not enough sunlight in here. Okay, so. Here's what we got to do. Let's. Why don't we just actually switch over and actually start coding? I feel like we could probably talk in the abstract about this stuff for a long time, but it'll be more fun to show people how this stuff works. So before we get into it, you can always find on the homepage of the site we have live captioning. So we've got Jordan with us today from Whitecoat Captioning, helping us make this possible, or helping make the show more accessible, which I really appreciate. And then we've got the sponsors, Netlify, Fauna, and Auth0, all kicking in to make the show, make it possible to get the captioning, which is really nice for me. We also, while you're clicking on things on the internet, we are hanging out with James today. So make sure you go give him a follow on Twitter. And this, I think, is an article. So this is the article that we're going to kind of use as a base here, right? To get started. We're going to make some modifications here because this is not using Sveltekit. So how about this? At this point, we're kind of looking at the raw components. What should I do first?
Well, I think if I remember correctly, the first thing in the article is to actually register the app inside of the dashboard. So we can kind of scroll through that as we go. They've got like a little there of what it's going to be. And then we talked about prereqs before, have Node installed in a browser. No surprise. And then create the Auth0 app. So the way this works is you basically like register an app, create an app inside of Auth0. And when you do that, there's like a couple of credentials that come with it that we'll need to add into the application code itself to be able to configure the SDK.
Here's a login button.
I feel like that would be great feedback.
See, all right. So I'm authorizing Auth0. It's taking me back. And all right, we're in manage.auth0. Okay.
Did you do the like Gatsby swag store? Did it use Auth0?
It did, yeah. That's
what I thought. Okay. That was a cool use case.
Yeah, that was a fun one. You can find that over at, or what is it? It's store.gatsbyjs.com, I think. Assuming it's still up. Is it at org? There it is. Yeah, so this is the Gatsby store. That's an Auth0 project. And if you want to see how it works, down here at the bottom, you can find the source code for it. So that's a full-fledged project you can go and look at, a little more production. It does a bunch of fun stuff in there. I
love seeing good examples like that. By the way, on the last thing on the bottom of that page, if you go back, is this the way of gating to say like you want to have something registered in your store to give away, but not let people buy so it's exclusive, so you make it $1,000 a piece? Is that what that's for?
That's a great question. I assume so.
I've seen that recently somewhere.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've done anything with Gatsby, so I'm assuming this is like a giveaway that they don't want people to buy straight up.
The Superbase store had several like that were like $1,000 for a t-shirt, and I'm like, this is not what that's made for.
All right, so
cool.
I have a bunch of applications. I have no idea what any of them are. I'm actually going to pull this off screen real quick, just in case I've got some stuff that I'm not supposed to show. Oh no, these are all like demo apps. That's fine.
It's probably okay as long as you don't go to like your user tab or anything. Also the client ID, you can see those on your screen just underneath the panel that you're on. Those are fine to share. I mean, you don't need to go out of your way to do it, right? But those are public IDs. Yeah, they're just a unique identifier for the app itself. There's nothing inherently secret about it.
Got it.
So what you've done is you've clicked on like the create an application, and this is the panel that comes up. So you can give it just an arbitrary name. It doesn't really matter, whatever you think works best. And then it's asking what type of application we're working on. And so like the behind the scenes details of this gets into the way OpenID Connect and OAuth2 work. And this is the kind of thing that for me at Auth0 was really interesting to learn the details about those things, but from a from a person who doesn't work at an identity company, most of us don't really care that much. But the implication of that is that those things get implemented slightly differently based on the type of application you're working on. So native app versus a regular single page app versus a regular web app. And interestingly, things like Next.js fall into the regular web app category instead of SPA, even though it's built on top of React. And that's because it has more of a server side component to it.
Okay. And
the big difference you'll hear in talks that I give about identity and stuff, and specifically with these workflows, is what type of application can quote unquote keep a secret. So with a regular web app, because you're able to run in the Next.js perspective, because you're able to run code in a serverless function that runs, ironically, on a server, you have access to private credentials through your environment variables that never get shipped or shared in the browser. So in that sense, they can keep a secret, but regular React, Angular, Svelte, Vue cannot keep a secret. So in this case, we're going to choose single page web app. a little additional context. There is a Next.js specific SDK. There is not a Sveltekit specific SDK.
Okay.
So in theory, even though Sveltekit has access to API routes as well, meaning they have functions that can run on the server, there's no like SDK to really integrate that stuff seamlessly. So we basically, in this case, are going to treat it just like a regular single page app with Svelte.
Okay. Do we have Svelte?
We do not, I don't think.
So it's just plain JavaScript?
Yep. And we'll like, you could click on that for the getting started just to kind of see what's there, but we'll follow the details that are in the post, but it'll be fairly similar.
Okay.
Somebody commented in the chat, I can keep a secret most of the time. Fair enough.
Don't you lie to me, chat. I know you steal my secrets. Okay.
One of the things about the not having a specific SDK, there's not a specific SDK for Vue and for Svelte. There's one for Angular, React, and Next. And this is where like community feedback comes into play. So if people like really said, hey, we absolutely need Svelte or Sveltekit or Vue or whatever, that's the kind of thing people could comment and leave that feedback to see if that could be something that gets prioritized in the future.
Gotcha. Okay. So I have, let's see, we've got our app. We created the app, and then this I think is going to be different. Now, do I need to? Oh wait, hold on. Okay, so I need to go into the settings, and then I need to set up some stuff here.
Yep, and we'll change because Sveltekit, when we set that up, will run by default at port 3000. We'll change what you're about to copy to 3000, but you can go ahead and copy it.
Okay.
And so in the settings tab, there should be 3 spots to paste that in. A little bit further. So the allowed callback URLs.
Allowed callback URLs, that's going to be 3000.
Yep.
And then we're going to, I assume, these.
Log out. Yep. And web origins. And the reason I don't know. I've never used the actual origin one. I'm not sure what that would be for, but anyway, I think we'd be fine regardless.
Okay.
So what this is really quickly, like again, if people are interested in details, OpenID Connect are the two kind of like standards for implementing authentication authorization. But what happens is from our application, we're basically going to redirect the user over to Auth0, and then Auth0 is going to redirect the user back. And we're just telling Auth0 where users will come from and where they can reasonably send people or safely send people back to.
Got it.
And this is, I was going to send you this link. So you are, you're already on top of it for setting up a Sveltekit app.
All right. So we're going to do Svelte at Next, and we're going to call this LWJ Auth0 Sveltekit. Okay, so it's gonna install the package. Great. Beta software. Do we want skeleton or demo?
Just the skeleton. So the demo will have some other code that we don't need. Skeleton will be pretty bare. And I was not going to, I don't think the tutorial uses TypeScript either. So we'll just do it without TypeScript for the time being.
Okay, I'm gonna skip linting because we don't want to get stuck in there. I will use prettier because that's nice. Great. Okay.
Cool. And now you can follow those instructions, open it in VS Code, I assume, do an install, and then we can run what's there.
Great. Okay, so I'm gonna get init, and then we'll do like I mean, we can probably just publish this thing, right? So git add everything. Good, and then we'll get commit. All right, and then we'll create a repo at learn with JSON LWJ Auth0 Sveltekit. Make it public.
We're already getting some heckling in the chat from Destin about not using TypeScript.
Always. I know. Yeah, we'll definitely do a little more. I mean, TypeScript is taken off. I feel like there was a long time where TypeScript was kind of the thing. Did I not push? Oh, I didn't push the button.
Yes. Yep.
Doofus. Okay, so now we've got that, and then I can git push. We'll set the upstream to origin main. All right. And then now that I've got that, I can Netlify init this thing. And I'm just using the Netlify CLI here. So we'll get this thing published. We'll put it on my account.
I have not done the Netlify CLI. How
It's
new
so
is
nice.
that? Is that new?
Man, it's been around for so long and we just don't tell anybody about it.
Really?
Here's the thing. We did a launch on it like a little over a year ago. And at the time that we launched it, it was fine, but it was like, didn't quite do all the things that we needed to do. And people on like different frameworks would have issues. And so we just kind of we didn't get too into telling people about it because we didn't want people to get frustrated. But then we've been steadily making progress and it's been it's really good now. We just, still haven't told anybody yet.
Yeah. Can you stream log messages with the CLI?
You just develop locally, right? So I think you might.
Well, I mean, like if I have something going wrong on my deployed build and I just want to stream, watch those as they come in.
Let's see. Can you?
And if not, then
do we get logs?
My unsolicited request would be to be able to do that. Because right now, every time I have an error in a function, I have to log into the dashboard and go and see if it's in that recent snapshot of logs. I also could be more official and set up log rocket or something for better stuff, but I just haven't done that.
Yeah, no, that is a good point. So this will open in the wrong window. Jeez. Okay, let's put this over here. Here's where we want to be.
Now, one thing I don't know. So there's extensions, I think, for deploying Sveltekit to Netlify. I don't think just a regular build or whatever. So we can come back to that. Yeah, the adapters.
Okay.
And maybe try to get that configured. I've never done it before, but we could maybe try to get it configured after the fact.
Cool. All I have to do is this. Okay, let's
give
try.
it a shot. Looks like.
Let's try. npm install this one, and then I gotta get this bit here, put it in svelte config. I can actually open this up. Here's our svelte config.
B1 mine in the chat is confirming that it should be that easy using the adapter.
Oh, nice. So we just need to drop this in here. Wow, I can't. There we go. To there. Jesus. All right. All right. So that should fix it. Export default config. Good. All right. So then if I git commit everything and say fix, use the Netlify adapter and push, then that should get this thing live. So let's go and look.
I'm glad you thought to do. I didn't even think about actually.
Oh, you need to install it with the next flag.
Somewhere. Install which piece?
I think I need to install it with the @next flag.
Oh, for the adapter?
Yeah, let's try it again.
Okay. Oh, that's what stored all is saying in the chat.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what you're reading.
That part.
Okay.
Oh, what's up, Ben and friends? Welcome. We are doing some Sveltekit. We're doing some Auth0 right now. We are trying to get this adapter up and playing nicely. I'm very excited about this. This one's gonna work. Here we go. This is the one.
Those are such dangerous words. I can't tell you how many times I've done something live and it's all right, this is the one. And it's 50 times in. Something's happening. That's good.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So now we've got our Sveltekit site. So there we go. Sveltekit running, operating.
Oh, nice.
Got ourselves a site. So
victory.
Now what we can do is, so if I run this, do I need any serverless functions or anything to be running here?
We won't. So, so maybe that's one distinction we should clarify. So Svelte is a regular, people get very specific about compiler versus framework. We'll throw it into the general framework category of Angular, React, Vue, Svelte, or together for SPA frameworks.
Gotcha.
Sveltekit is basically the equivalent of what Next.js is for React, Nuxt.js is for Vue, where you have this like server side aspect of being able to run those serverless functions that we talked a little bit about earlier. But in this case, we're not doing anything with the server side. So we're keeping all this on the front end. So it's basically going to be like a regular SPA app using Vue. But by using Sveltekit, one of the things we get is the new compiler is built with ES Build, which Vite is on top of.
Yeah.
Vite uses ES Build under the hood. Is that right? So it makes it so much faster. And I was having the struggle earlier when I was building something with regular Svelte was if I added something to a to-do thing and it showed, and then I updated the code and refreshed, it got rid of all the previous stuff that I'd entered. Okay. Versus this does like in place hot module replacement, like which will leave the state of
where hot module. Yeah, that's nice. That's really nice.
Yep.
Okay.
So I figured it's faster, it's nicer once you get it set up. And if we wanted to, which we probably won't get to, it's got page or route based or page based, what's it called? Based routing?
Like page
routes?
You
add a file,
file-based
you
routing.
add a file-based routing. Thank you. You add a file in a specific location that hosts that as a route for you.
Great. Okay.
Yeah, cool. So we should be at the install the SDK part. So if you want to copy that line and throw that package in there. And this again is the generic SPA.js framework. So this is what you would use for like Svelte in this case, or Vue. If you were doing Angular or React or Next, there are specific SDKs for those.
Okay. And so now I want to create a store.js. All right.
Yep.
And then inside of that,
you can kind of copy it in there and we can talk through it if you want.
Yeah. Why don't you run us through what this is actually doing?
Yeah. So mentioned really briefly earlier, stores are like probably one of my favorite aspects of Svelte. So if you look at like React context API, it's like you can do it and it works pretty well, but it's a little tricky to set up. Stores is basically like what you call services in Angular. So you create services which kind of follow the singleton pattern, and it's basically like any data that you need to either update or read, you have it in the central spot so that you can access that information and update that information in and from different components. So that's basically what we're trying to accomplish here.
Okay.
Is we want to track a couple of pieces of information about the user. Are they authenticated? What the user is, whether the pop-up is open, and then if there's some sort of error. And so what we do is import the writable from Svelte store, and then we initialize those properties, those four, as being writable. What that means is from different components, as long as we export these, they can subscribe to that data, they can listen for changes to that data, they can also update that data, which is pretty nice.
Gotcha.
And then the derived is relatively new for me, but I think I can explain it. Derived is saying like, I want to basically use properties that are writable and combine or gain some sort of insight or derive some sort of insight from those properties and then return some sort of specific value. So in this case, it is grabbing all the tasks that are associated with the user's email that's logged in if the user is logged in. Gotcha. So it's dependent upon properties that are used above or defined above as writable, and then you derive the user tasks from those different pieces of information.
Gotcha. Yeah, this is cool.
So for additional context, like in the React perspective, all that information is authenticated user and a couple of other things is basically what becomes a provider inside of React. Like the SDK basically does this for you in React. Now we're just kind of setting up the boilerplate in Svelte for us.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Okay, so now we want to create a new file, and this one's going to live at,
and you can
the root auth config here. Whoops.
You can. When I was doing this earlier, I had some sort of issue importing from that. I'm not sure why. So we can give it a shot and see. And then if we have any issue with the importing of these settings, okay, we'll just copy those in directly because they're not private.
Okay. All right. So our domain, That's going to be the localhost 3000, right?
It will not actually. In this case, it's the Auth0 domain. So
Gotcha.
which is actually a great call out here. So the domain in Auth0 is associated with your tenant. So a tenant is basically a grouping of applications in Auth0.
Okay.
You can see like in the top left of your frame, there's J Langsdorff. That's actually going to be like part of the domain. But if you scroll down, or actually at the bottom of your screen now, you can see the domain property under, So it's going to be like that tenant name, which is J Langsdorff, and then .auth0.com.
Okay.
If you're in a different region, it may be like .eu.auth0.com or something like that.
Gotcha.
But in this case, it's just the .auth0.com.
Okay. And so these, good. All right. This is going to let me, this will be how we log in. This is a client ID so that we know that this app actually knows like what this app is, because this would be the same for all of our apps. So this is like just saying we're logging into LWJ Svelte.
So the specific, yep.
Gotcha.
So in one clarification, it would be the same for all the apps that are still in that same tenant. So you could have different tenants that are different groupings of applications. But assuming you're staying in that same tenant, then it would be all the apps under that tenant.
Okay. All right. And then it's wanting me to git ignore this, which seems...
It's unnecessary. So these are, I actually might like send them a message and say, you don't have to. And they kind of imply here, you don't want to mistakenly push your details to a public repo. Like it's probably good to have them from a configuration standpoint and environment variables, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with checking these in because neither one of these pieces of information are actually private. So you can just skip that for now if you want.
Gotcha. Okay. So we can also, let me make this quick change here. I'm going to keep the, so if we run this through,
you're going to run it Netlify dev,
then we can set environment variables.
Yep. Cool. And make sure those are comma separated, I think is what it's
comma separated. Gotcha.
Yeah. I wonder, does it make that clear in there? It has a little piece of text right under, comma separated list.
It was like, you are broken. Okay. All right, there we go. So I'm gonna save all that.
And so what you're going to do, you're talking about going ahead and creating your environment variables in Netlify, connecting this site that we're running locally to Netlify.
Yeah, so check this out. I can go Netlify mset, and then we'll say auth0 domain.
Love this.
And then,
I need to start using the CLI. This is dope.
And so that'll set that for me. And then I can do the same thing, but we'll do auth0 client ID, and we'll put in our client ID here.
Love this.
All right, so those are now set. And then when we run, like if we start this server, it'll pull in those nvars, and then it'll run the site using those. So now both for our builds and for local dev, we've got these set. So we can actually...
Does Netlify have contextual environment variables, like for different, like for dev, prod, that sort of stuff?
There are some plugins for that. It's not like straight up supported. Like you can make it work, but that's something that we've been talking about on like how do we make this all better. I think it's on the roadmap for sure.
Yeah.
Let's
that would be awesome.
So I do have one concern, which is that this is a front end framework, right? So is it going to pull process end, or do I need to do like a Svelte prefix for nvars?
Oh, great question. There probably is a prefix.
Let's go check it.
Yeah, I'll search with you.
Let's go to environment variables. Where are you at?
It looks like Vite. I've already gotten yelled about that many times. Vite public, I think, is the prefix.
Vite public.
See if it looks like it. See if you can find something that confirms that too. Or if we have anybody in the chat,
right? Let's go to the deploy settings. We'll go to environment, and then I can say, so just Vite public like that.
I believe so.
Okay. All right. So we'll save those. And then in here, Then when we run those, they'll pull in. And then I guess what we can do is come back here and we'll just do like a process.env.vite public auth0 domain. And then I can copy all of this. Oops, client ID. All right, so theoretically speaking, that should give us our environment variable. So let's, I mean, we're not in a point where we can actually test that yet, so we probably need to go a little bit further here. So auth
the next
service,
thing,
right?
Yep.
All
And
right.
this is just another, like if there was an SDK, this would be done for us. But since there's not a specific Svelte SDK, we're again kind of exposing those functions and pieces of information in this service that we want is basically what we're doing.
Okay. I'm just going to copy paste this instead of manually typing it out, but let's run through what it does.
So we've got create client, which initializes the Auth0 client. It pulls in the properties from the auth config, like you were just looking at.
Okay.
I think you updated the path correctly. That's good.
I did,
and then
yeah.
I think you also
Oh, we got a frozen James.
you have to add the .js. Oh, hello.
Yeah, you're back. That makes sense. So yeah, I think that's a Vite thing, right? We have to include the file extensions.
Yep.
Okay, so now we've got create client. We've got login with pop-up. Now neither of these are used. So are we... Oh, I just like stopped copy pasting down here.
And then you end up exporting that last object at the end.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Auth. Yeah. All right. Okay. So now that we've got all those pieces, so basically what we've done here is we're creating a client. This client uses the Auth0 client, which comes out of this spa.js, sends in our domain and client ID. That's what's going to allow us to do all the login things. And then login with pop-up. And so this pop-up open is our store. So we're updating our store to be true. And then we run the login with pop-up function, which looks like it just comes out of
the SDK.
Comes out of the
or
SDK.
it just comes from the client. Yeah, from the client SDK.
Okay. And then the user, that's our store. So we're setting that to be the value of the Auth0 user. And then we set is authenticated to true. Great.
Yep.
And then we close the pop-up.
Pop-up. Yep. And notice we're using the set there for pop-up open and user and is authenticated because those are writable pieces from the store. So because you have to call the setter, that basically allows the store to then broadcast, hey, things have changed for anyone that's actually subscribed to changes with that data.
Yeah, and that's like the derived, right? Like that will notify the derived state that, hey, we've got a user now. Yeah. You can go get the task for that user. Well, that's cool. I mean, this feels very nice. Like I like this approach. It feels good. It looks, none of this was like, wait, hold on, what happened? Which I think that's always good when you're looking at a new API, that the more advanced concepts, because like state is an advanced concept. You're trying to move around data between files, and that is not necessarily like the most approachable thing to do. So the fact that we can read this and it's kind of like, okay, I get what's happening here. Like this makes sense. I have this. It's writable. I'm gonna set its value to true. Like we can get there. So great. All right. So next.
And so now it's just kind of getting into mainly kind of to-do list boilerplate stuff. So again, we'll copy these snippets in, but we'll talk about them along the way, I think.
Okay. So I'm going to create a new folder called components. And in components, we're going to create, it was task item.svelte. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. So there's our task item. I'm going to grab out this if I can. There we go.
And we'll have to make sure we update the imports and stuff again. since we're changing this to Sveltekit.
So we're going up and then to store.js. That makes sense. All right, so we've got those tasks. We've got some styles. And then we've got our setup here. Anything else I need to change in here?
I don't think so. One thing, we may have overlooked this. I don't know if we just haven't gotten there yet or not. This is, the demo uses Bootstrap, so we need to make sure we do it's just using like the CDN Bootstrap, which if we were doing it for real, we'd probably do it a little bit better. But on the article, scroll up a little bit. I think it was already, let's just make sure. So like a little HTML, maybe not, maybe it's further down. Okay, maybe we haven't gotten there yet.
Okay, so here's our task list. And so this, let's see, we get our tasks, we have a single task, we check whether or not it is actually checked, we have the ability to show it, so we do a list item with an input that's a checkbox, and we're updating checked on whether or not our input is checked. And then when we change it, we check to see whether or not it is done. Okay, all right, that makes sense to me.
And at the top of that page, we imported the writable stuff from the store, the tasks. So this component will actually receive a task like passed into itself as props. And the way you do that in Svelte and Sveltekit is line number 3, which is you export a variable. So we're exporting tasks with a default value of empty object. That means that's basically a prop coming into this component. So the task list thing is going to take each task, pass it to this task item component. But above that, we import the tasks from the store, and we can then use those in line 18 to do that set again. So we make some changes to the task by updating that one task, and then we go ahead and update the tasks that are stored in the store. So if you can imagine, once we have a component, once we have the parent component of this, that's the list, it will then trigger a re-render because it will be subscribed to the changes to that data.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. All right, welcome, Alex and friends. We are we're getting into some Sveltekit here. So we're trying to build out a Sveltekit app that's a to-do list that uses Auth0 for auth, so that you have a user login and then you track your tasks based on the user that you are. So let's see, building the task list page. Here's our Bootstrap stuff. This is going to go into public index, but I think we're going to put this in routes, right?
And so it'll go in the app HTML. So like the parent HTML default one in this case is just app HTML.
Okay, so I'm going to take this. We're going to update the head.
I think I would probably leave everything except for just the actual Bootstrap import. So like the 4th line through the 8th line or so. Yeah. And then you can just put that right below the Svelte head thing or right above it. Yeah.
Okay.
Did we break anything? Why is that tag not happy at the top?
It says documents must have a title element.
Did we get rid of the title?
I don't think it had one.
Oh, okay.
So why don't we...
Well, I guess you can copy that one.
Drop that one in there, and we'll say LWJ Svelte Kit plus Auth0.
Sweet.
Okay. All right, now it's happy. Look at it. Look how happy it is. It's a happy little app. Okay. We don't need global CSS. Now we're going to get into... What file is this? App.svelte. So that's going to be, this is going to be our index, right?
Yes. And we could, so there's the concept of the layout file in Sveltekit, which is kind of like the parent of all routes, or you can actually you can nest it under route directories and have it just be a parent for a specific set of routes. But anyway, so we could do this stuff. If we were actually doing multiple pages, probably what we would do is do all of this stuff inside of the __ layout file, which would be kind of the wrapper for all of the other routes. But since we're just on one page, we can just throw this in the index one.
So you would do it like this? __ layout?
Yep.
Okay. And then this will wrap everything. All right. And the reason that you do this, if I'm understanding correctly, is that we need this to be available. Oh wait, I'm in the wrong place, right? Like this is definitely not the right thing.
That's the right thing. Yeah. So the reason we would move this file should be in routes. Yes. Dustin was at.
The layout goes in routes. We've got another frozen James. It is like 1 million degrees in my office right now. I'm just a sweaty mess. Oh. Frozen quick.
Hello?
Oh, there you are. There you are. Okay.
Rats.
So we've got this.
Yeah, chat. Thank you. Yeah, so you were asking about the reason to put this in the layout. So the layout component, when it's inside of the root of the routes directory, will basically kind of wrap all of the routes beneath it, which in this case is all the routes. So all we're trying to do here is let Auth0 do its thing, where it's going to figure out if the user is logged in or not, and we want that to be the very first thing that happens. And then when it figures that out, it will update the store, and then all the other components that are dependent upon properties from that store will then be able to render themselves correctly.
Got it. Okay, so do I need to split this up a little bit? Because it looks like I've got some layout stuff, but then I have some index stuff. I'm wondering if I'm overcomplicating this.
I think it's fine.
Okay.
I think you could leave this here.
Okay.
So far, and did we get all of, so the task item on line 5, we'll need to update that import. I think we'll need to update all of those imports actually. So probably just 2 dots for each one of them instead of 1. So going back out of the layout or routes directory and then to the source directory, I believe.
Whoops. Okay, so we've got 1, 2 there. Let me get the store.js needs to be up 1. Okay, so those should all be correct.
Looks good.
And then we haven't done any of this stuff, so here's our main application. So we drop that underneath. So this is just our basic styles. I guess I can put this wherever I want, right?
Yes. And that slot, by the way, is basically what like your children components would be in React. So when we have those routes, the slot is basically the placeholder for the route components themselves.
Nice. Yeah. So then we've got a bunch of markup here.
A bunch of boilerplate code. Yeah, we'll do a copy and paste in here. So this, if we wanted to separate this out a little bit, probably what we would do is take like the nav bar portion of this. So if you somewhere in there is a nav tag.
Feels like we kind of want like
this,
right?
Yep, that's what I was going to suggest.
And then I come back in here.
And in your index, yep.
Okay, now
and then
I'm missing a bunch of stuff though. So like, do I need to pull some of the things out of the layout into here, or does the layout, is it smart enough to like give me all of this stuff?
So you'll need to copy over line number 4, like the import of things from the store. So that would be 1.
Okay, so I'm gonna
you have to add your script tags at the top, which we didn't, like for people that are new to Svelte, we didn't quite like hit on this, but like your markup, your JavaScript, and your CSS go in one file, which is something that a lot of people like, something that a lot of people don't like. So in this case, we just add a script tag to add JavaScript and do normal JavaScript-y things.
Gotcha. And then I'm probably going to need that task item over here, right?
Yes, because that will be what we use to actually display the task item.
Okay.
Yep.
There it is. Okay.
And how are we looking? I think we're close.
Like this we've got some unused imports here, but I think this should work, right? Let's run this thing.
We shall see.
Fingers crossed.
Live coding is the best.
Oh, it doesn't like something. It says New task is not declared. All right, what are we
Okay,
missing?
so that would be the piece of state. So in this thing, they didn't separate out like a form. So
New
copy
task,
over.
Auth0 client, right? So we need the new task.
Yep.
Okay. I have some regrets about trying to do this this layout. Okay.
This is
so
I think it gives us like a good reason to have more attention to detail about what the pieces are though. So I think it's good.
login is not defined, which means I got to get login out of here. On mount function login. Right? So I'm going to
may
need
end up being
like, do I just need to pull all this stuff in?
login. Unfortunately, login is going to be used in two different places here. Because it's used in the nav bar, and then I think it's also in like the stuff that's not the nav bar. So instead of having a separate function for that, what we could do is just like in the on click, just directly call that login with pop up. But you could just copy those functions over too.
I think I might just copy them over for the sake of speed here. So what do we got now? It says add item is not defined. So we'll just go and get all of these. Here's
An
my
add item looks like that one. You can do copy over the gen random too.
Gen random.
Yeah. Somebody said in the chat, the real question is, did you save? That is always
now I have
a real
saved.
question.
And it doesn't like something. Unused CSS selector main application. Yeah. Okay. But I'm definitely getting issues here where index.svelte. This should be saved. This is saved. So what's not catching here?
And we have, are we on, that is the right port?
Let's try this one more time. Okay, but how though?
I don't know. And there's still no issue in the terminal. Doesn't look like.
404 not found. Okay, we got problems. It's like picking up weird stuff. So let's look at what's in here.
Brittany's asking about port 3000. So yeah, when you run Sveltekit by default, it's running at port 3000, but then Netlify dev should abstract that and basically serve it to you at port 8888, which then allows Netlify dev to combine it with serverless functions if it wants.
Okay, so I just deleted all the cached files. So let's run it again. Loaded function render. Started with Sveltekit. There we go. I don't know what that was. That was It was like it had cached something oddly.
Yeah.
So here is process is not defined. Process
is that not how we actually get access to those variables?
I screwed something up. Let's go look. Here are our docs. And in the docs I want to search. How do you search? There is no search.
So I think someone mentioned this earlier. It may be import.meta.env.name. Can someone? Yeah, Brittany's saying this.
Import.meta in front of the end variable. So instead of process.env, you do import.meta.
Seems like it, which is interesting. In the auth config.
So
it's a Vite thing. Okay.
Import.meta.
I think so.
All right. YOLO. Let's try it.
Mine also, we'll see if that works. Mine also mentioned import.meta.env. So I don't know if we need the .env part too, but we'll give it a shot.
Well, it's not.
Look like it worked.
Oh wait, no, it is import.meta.env because multiple people are confirming that. So here we go.
Okay.
Okay, let's try this one more time.
Just think about without long how long individually we would spend on Eris without people to help us out sometimes.
Brutal. Absolutely brutal. Okay, so I missed the Auth0 client. So we need that.
Which rats, unfortunately, we need that from here. We need right? Like the initialized version.
On mount is not defined. Don't you?
So you have to import. You have to import on mount too.
Oh, got it. So we're quickly approaching that I just like overdid all of this. Okay, so I can now. Oh, but hey, look at this. Now we got Auth0. It's doing the thing, so I can sign up.
And this will, by the way, this will be based on the tenant configurations. Oh no, it will have those different providers set up. Press back button, refresh.
That's not good. Let me try this one more time. Yeah, it really shouldn't be showing me Gatsby stuff.
Huh.
Invalid request. Open too many login dialogues. Something with the cookies.
I wonder. I think one thing we did was because you copied over the on mount code but didn't delete it from the original one. I think it may be creating like 2 Auth0 clients.
Okay.
Are we using?
Let's just delete all the things we're not using and see how it goes. That's not used. This isn't used. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, and then this is supposed to go in here. That's why that's our unused thingy. So then if I put this down here, then theoretically speaking, now this unexpected slot, I don't know if that's a thing we need to care about, but
I think I saw that earlier in mine too, and I didn't know why.
Okay, so I'm doing something wrong where it's like pulling from the wrong app here. Because I have this app. Right, so we've got our allowed web origins.
So it may just like you may have run. Did you run the Gatsby like swag store from this tenant? Do you know in Auth0?
I think I did.
The J. So whatever configurations were there for that tenant as a whole. Sorry, dog, your stuff. Whatever configurations you have with the tenant as a whole will then populate to this application. So one thing we can do.
Okay, so maybe maybe I just need to.
So you could log in there, but probably the easier thing to do would just be to create a new tenant inside of Auth0.
Oh, I can create a new tenant?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you hit that drop down in the top where J Linksdorf is.
Create tenant.
And then create tenant. Yeah, you could just do this like JSON test or whatever.
Okay, so let's go into... Nope.
And then you'll need to create an app there, copy over the local host stuff. Sevy. So I've got one dog. One dog is outside barking at another dog. The one that's in here with me hears that and now is missing out on all the fun. So
there's nothing like being left out of barking at something. I feel your pain.
Every time I get left out of that, yeah, I get very upset.
Localhost 8888. All right, so we'll do that one, that one, that one, that one. Okay, so I've got all those. I'm gonna save
and then
them.
scroll down and save.
And then I got all the way up here. Here's my client ID. So we've already got app.netlify.com. Let's get into this Sveltekit.
Someone said you're really used to writing Learn with JSON. I assume just because you wrote it fast.
Yeah, I do. I do definitely type that many times a day. Let's see. So then I've got that, and then my URL is this one. So we'll throw this in here. I'm going to save it. All right, let's try this one more time. So I'm going to stop Restart.
Sorry.
The saddest dog. All right, let's try this. Here we go. This is going to work. Log in. This is better. Okay, this is good. I would like to sign up. I'm going to continue with Google. All right. Accept. There we go. All right, so now I'm logged in.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, so do some stuff.
Do a boot.
Yeah, look at it go. All right, now these are all persisted, right? They're not
They
persisted.
are no. So this would be our missing piece here. So I don't know like what the end goal would be in terms of time. They've got these filtered in the article based on the user's email, but in this case we don't have them persisted anywhere, so we don't really have a good way to actually see that. So we could have this interact with like local storage, and then you could create some stuff, sign out, and sign back in with a different account to show that working. I don't know if we have time or want to go that far or want to try it out, or if we want to just kind of be good here with the fact that we actually have the login part working.
I think we might. Let's see. We got maybe 25 minutes, so we don't really have anywhere to. Like, where would we put it? We'd put it in local storage or something.
Yeah, I don't think we would go like to an actual database.
Yeah, I mean, we could do that. One thing I'd love to figure out is I'm doing something wrong here where I'm doing an unexpected slot of default. Am I supposed to name these or something?
Default. Let me look that up too, because I'm not sure. I think I had that same warning earlier. Named slot is what?
So it says minimized.
Lily, come here.
Dev time warning. Huh. I don't know what it's not really clear what it is.
Is there, I mean, if we're throwing out guesses, I was going to say add a name property to it. I don't know. Slot.
Yeah.
Looks like they actually, throw a name property on it. Like throw a name property of like route. I found an example on the Svelte docs for named routes.
Okay. Let's go into layout. Does it need to have like any name, or can I literally?
I imagine it's arbitrary. So I was just going to call it like route, I guess. That's what I was saying. I've always just ignored that.
I think we might need to, yeah, because it doesn't.
Oh, lame. I don't know. I don't know.
Sure. Don't know. We can just ignore it. It's not that big of a deal. It's not causing anything to break.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. I mean, we've done the thing, right? This is pretty great that we were able to, this quickly. Oh wait, now I've broken something because we're not dropping it into that slot. Does it need to be? Default is a reserved word. Okay. Well, okay. All right. Back to where we started.
I'm done with you.
Okay. All right. I'm logged in. I have my ability to create tasks. Right. And we can toggle whether or not those are done. And so, yeah, I mean, this is pretty powerful stuff. Like, even with us messing up and opening this in the wrong tenant, right? We were still able to get the whole thing going. We're less than an hour into building this thing, and we've got a fully functional auth app. And so, a future thing that we could do with this that would actually be kind of fun. You're at planet scale now. We could hook this up and send this in to a database so that this could be pulled from anywhere, right? And so
that's
this
actually
is
one of my plans, to do some content around that.
Yeah, because I think this would be it's very powerful. It's very approachable. I feel like this was, there are a couple things that are a little mysterious, like this slot name thing is a little mysterious, but we were able to, even with some hacky copy pasting, get this thing all the way up and running, get our login, logout going, get our list from the, from our local store. If we wanted to, we could go in here to our store and do something where whenever the task changed, we could go and drop them into local storage or something. Not going to do that because there are enough questions around how that would actually work that it probably isn't going to happen in the 20 minutes that we have left. So maybe what we want to do is just celebrate that we were able to get this done ahead of schedule.
Getting anything to work live, I feel like, is worth a celebration.
So is there anything else that you want to show off in how all this worked?
You could do like a text message notification or like a multi-factor authentication if you wanted to. That's like a configuration thing in the dashboard.
Oh yeah, let's mess with that. That sounds fun. How does one do such a thing?
It's one of the buttons on the left. Hover on those so I can see what those items are. Try authentication. I forget, or maybe security. It's one of those. Passwordless. Try security. Multi-factor auth.
Okay.
And then, so there's a bunch of different factors that you can use. You can use, like, if people have used like Google Authenticator before, like Guardian is Auth0's version of that, basically. Then cool. They've got a phone message in there. So you can configure this with Twilio longer term, but you should be able to activate it for free with just using Auth0 with a limit there of messages, but it should work. So we can have it send SMS message. You can customize the template. Scroll to the top. Was there like an enable type thing?
Yeah, there's this button here.
It was kind of hidden by or at least for me it was. And then you get a save there. All right, what are we missing?
I think we got it. So let's log out.
Oh, it just does it by itself. Okay.
Need to run this again. Log out. Oh wait, I think our logout button doesn't work. Auth0 client is not defined. What have I done? Okay, let's let's dive into here. We have login, and for that,
you probably have logout there. I would probably just copy over that nav bar because the nav bar has login and logout too. So I might copy over the nav bar from there and then not duplicate the login logout.
Gotcha. So we're not doing a ton with this layout. At the end of the day, we would probably need to dig in a little bit more to figure out the right way to do that. But this will be just fine for us here. So we can drop this in, and then what?
It looked like it had some red cursor to the bottom of the nav bar. Or maybe so log. Okay, so we need to copy
missing,
over.
So I got to get this one.
Yep.
So here's my log out. Put this up with my login. And then what else is over here? Login isn't used anymore, so we don't need those. Don't need these. Oh boy, this is not much of a layout at all, is it? Let's drop this all in here. There we go. Log out. Now we've logged out. So if I log in, wants to take me here. Continue with Google. All right. So what I don't know though is how do we turn on the multi-factor auth?
So I think if you go back to the dashboard, and then go. So press the little back arrow that says back to multi-factor auth. Oh, I think we lost it. Go back to multi-factor auth, and then scroll down to phone message. It says enabled. Scroll down again. Scroll down all the way in there. And okay, so after I think this is a little bit confusing. After you say like, hey, we can use this, then you need to tell it when. So it's got like never do 2FA, always do 2FA, or it's got adaptive MFA. Okay. Which is like, we will prompt you for MFA stuff if there's some sort of suspicious activity. Like if you log in Florida and then 3 minutes later log in California, that's like impossible travel or whatever. So that would be something where adaptive MFA would prompt you. In this case, if we do always and save, then it should prompt.
All right, let's do it. So now we're out here. Not this one. We want this one. Nope. Localhost 8888. That's open in the wrong browser. Let's get it over here. All right, so here we go. I'm logging in and I'm going to use my Google. So it should force me to do multi-factor auth. Okay, let me do this off screen.
Oh, I was going to send you a text message.
Okay, so it is sending me a code. And I got it. All right, so let me get that code in there.
And you mentioned
continue, and there it is. That's sweet. Really nice.
You mentioned earlier the idea of like authentication being daunting. Like I think the basic parts of it, like once you've done it a couple times, like storing passwords securely is like, it's like the basics are relatively straightforward, but then you get into like adding multi-factor authentication, supporting different types of factors for that, sending those like welcome emails or email confirmation emails and things like that. Like those features just start adding up really, really quickly. So it gets infinitely more difficult to build like the entire suite of things that you might want or need in your authentication workflows.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just nice to like never have to think about that. You know what I mean? Like I feel like as a dev, what I'm interested in is building the thing that I wanted to build. Like I have an app that I want to build and it does whatever it is it does. And the last thing that I want to do is have to roll my own solution for all of the foundational pieces that make that app possible. Like I just want to plug together these services. And that's one of the things that I think is so exciting about this kind of like this Jamstack approach, right? Is that what we're able to do here? And why don't we, while we're at it, just go ahead and deploy this thing while we talk. Let me add
that was one thing I was gonna ask to see if it would get, and we don't have to update environment variables or anything either because those are already set for us, which is nice.
Okay, so let's push. Off it goes. Here are our deploys. And fingers crossed, nothing up our sleeve. This just does what we want it to. I guess we'll have to see how that goes.
We'll see one way or another.
Yeah, but it should work. Fingers crossed. But I think that, you know, the thing that's so exciting here is that like we get to build the thing we want to build. We get to kind of come up with a set of features that we want to build, and then we don't have to go and reinvent wheels to get all of these other pieces in there. We're going to have to add these to our app.
Yep.
Okay. So let's go back in.
Yeah, thank you to TypeScript Tea Time. What a name, by the way. That's a cool name. I like that.
So here's this, and I need settings. Let's go back to these. Probably don't want that, right? Just this. And that should be it, right? That should do the thing. So let's save it. And here we are with the thing. Everybody go give this a shot if you want. And now we can log in. Huh? Look at it go. And I have a code.
I'm going to test it on mine too.
Cool. I mean, look at that. We're in production with like multi-factor auth and user accounts and a whole bunch of stuff. And it took us all of an hour and 15 minutes. That is really, really, really powerful stuff. Holy buckets indeed.
Sweet. I just made it in too.
I'm always just blown away by that stuff. You know, it's so nice to see how much power we actually have as developers to just go and build things. And so if anybody wants to go and peek at this, the code is already online. You can go and look at the GitHub repo there. James, this was less painful than I would have imagined for authentication, you know? So here's what we should do. Why don't we start doing any additional resources, anything like that, and then we can just transition seamlessly right into your next stream. Where should people go if they want to do more with this stack? Are there additional resources you'd recommend?
Auth0 YouTube channel has some different tutorials depending on what you're using. So there's a couple of good ones with like React and Angular and Next. And I think just the quick starts outside of that are pretty helpful. So regardless of, or covering a lot of different frameworks and languages and stuff, the quick starts are pretty nice for just getting set up with those basics.
Cool. Sorry, it started making noise, and I got distracted. Very panicky. So after the YouTube, what was the other thing you wanted me to pull up?
Just the Auth0 quick starts. So they've got like the different tutorials for the different languages and frameworks.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, the autoplay gets me every time too.
Got him. Okay, so yeah, here's some quick starts. You can go in and look at these. So this is nice too, because if you just start typing React, look at that, look at it go. And React Native, Ionic, and oh, that's really nice. Lots of good stuff in here. This is great stuff. And then people can go and find you on Twitter. Let's see the Auth0 stuff. We looked at that. Here is Sveltekit one more time if you want to go dig into that. And let me do another shout out. We've had Jordan from White Coat Captioning with us all day doing the live captioning, making the show a little more accessible. And that's made possible through the support of our sponsors, Netlify, Fauna, and Auth0, all kicking in to make the show a little more accessible to everybody, which I really appreciate. Make sure while you're checking this out that you go and peek at our schedule, because we've got so many good things coming up. Later this week, we're going to talk to Michael Chantastic on the tweeters. We're going to be doing some just like fun CSS stuff, which CSS gets such a bad rap, but it's so much fun. I have so much fun doing anything with CSS. Later on, we're going to talk about Planet Scale and your new coworker here, Taylor Barnett. Nice. She's coming on Friday. We're going to talk to Alexander Spalato about building Gatsby WordPress themes. So that's headless WordPress. We're going to do Solid.js, which is a cool new framework. I guess it's not even new. It's just like a cool framework from Ryan Carniato. It's very, very, very fast. And then we're going to do distributed databases with MongoDB. We're going to do a whole bunch more, a whole bunch of episodes that have not been posted to the site yet. So keep your eyes peeled there. You can add on Google Calendar to get those updates. Make sure you follow on Twitch. Make sure you do all the subscribe on YouTube and the ring the bell and the subscriptions and all those things, because it makes me feel validated.
Makes me feel good.
Yeah, and I need validation, y'all. So James, any parting words for everybody?
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. This is fun. I'm planning on doing more now that I'm like reminded of how much I enjoy Svelte and Sveltekit. I'm planning on doing more content on my YouTube channel, and then for Planet Scale too. So I'm excited to tie that into some database stuff. Yeah,
and you're about to do that right now, right? You're gonna head over to the Planet Scale Twitch.
Yes, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna start this. I'm gonna have it with like a placeholder screen. Let me just verify. It says it's live. Let me verify that Planet Scale is live.
I'm looking for Planet Scale.
Please be live. Yeah, it's live.
Okay. Let's see if we can raid Planet Scale. Is that gonna work? Maybe.
Is it slash command or is it exclamation?
Man, I don't know how any of this stuff works. I can't
remember. I think it's slash. Is it?
I don't even. You're probably right. All right, everybody, we're gonna call this one done. So let me switch into the outro screen. We'll figure out how to go and raid Planet Scale. So stay tuned. We're gonna go hang out with James for some Planet Scale stuff. Thank you so much, James. We will talk to y'all next time.